Ah, yeah, there we go. Hopefully you can hear me now. So I just yeah. So I just thought I was doing these things occasionally, and this weekend I found a few really good things. So there's been a few things in the news, but some of them aren't so much as like just news. They are more about there's some really good videos, and some of it feeds into some of the stuff that I'm doing with regards to some of the teaching stuff that I'm doing. So basically I am technically an author for Rock Facts, who subsidised UK climbing, and so yeah, I found this great little news article on Lara Newmeyer, who's just done this amazing like 8B, 7C plus, 8A plus, 7A plus, 8B plus, 7C stroke 8A route. It's like a massive kind of very common test piece, great bit of news. And there was one other thing, if I go to the latest. The other thing that I watched here was, yeah, some guy repeating. This was actually this film about Nina Caprez and her, I guess it's her partner. Quite an emotional little journey. I'm not going to put this on right now, but again, well worth actually trying to find. But essentially, one of the things that I came across, it popped up on my news feed in the Book of Faces, was this dangers of walking in Eleri. Now, what you're going to meet in a little bit. I don't know whether I'm going to play all of this. It's only 6 minutes, so probably. But I first met this guy here. This is Paul, out surfing. So after I finished my first guidebook, no, North Wales climbs, like in 2010, I had to do something other than climbing, so I took up surfing, and I first met Paul there, and he's since kind of like does a lot of work with, I think, Ogwy Rescue Team. He's obviously in the police, and yeah, so this is it's a pretty emotional story, but there's a moral to it in that it kind of explains why we should be perhaps a little bit more careful when we go out. Let's see whether the sound comes through.
This story and these circumstances really are quite exceptional, and my thoughts and feelings are with the Colaco Brookfield family as we tell the public about this story. Mr. David Brookfield came as an experienced walker back.
So I think this is what's really interesting in this story. This isn't like the usual, these people were incompetent. It's pretty tragic. There are 2 deaths involved in this one that happened over 12 years ago. But yeah, it's a really good watch. Hang on.
Into this beautiful area of the Ogwen Valley, intending to do really quite an amazing route, starting going up into the Carnevai from Llyn Ogwen, and the route would have been 15 kilometres long. It was January 2024. Really nice weather actually, but forecast to deteriorate later in the day. And his final summit, which is behind me now, would have been Pen yr Olwen. Sadly, on that day, something went wrong and he was lost on that night. Sadly, we weren't able to find Mr. Brookfield during those first days of searching. The weather worsened, snow continued to fall after a few days, and the first couple of weeks were.
So it's really not that uncommon to sometimes not find people, like in really bad weather conditions. It's really trying. So like when we used to have to do searches in the rescue team, we'd have to go out, and based on the terrain and the weather, we'd get somebody go out, and you'd hide. They'd go walk away from you and they'd hide, and you'd all walk up and you'd stop when most people see them, and you work out the distance between you and an object that's hiding that you've hidden, and then you half that distance, with the idea being is that you're trying to avoid dead ground. And the complex nature of this terrain would have just made it pretty much impossible to search. I think both of them must have happened in the winter by the sounds of it, but yeah, it's not uncommon for people not necessarily to appear in searches. It's a sad thing, really.
Realised there was not any more that we could do from the ground. In May 2024, the Coast Guard helicopter crews were flying through this valley on a training exercise, and one of the winchmen was looking out of a door or a window and suddenly spotted something, caught his eye, and something blue, light blue, that really would stand out in this terrain, and they were really quite sure that what they found was sadly the remains of Mr. Brookfield. So while we were carrying out that investigation process, one of the team members found a jacket, and it was an older jacket, one that seemed to have been there for really some time. But deep in the psyche and the memory and the minds of this rescue team was one other person who'd been missing since 2012, this young man who's Shane Kalako. Later that week, I started looking at details of what Mr. Kalako was wearing, what he was driving, and I was quite amazed to find that the jacket that we recovered when we were recovering Brookfield was very similar to the jacket that Shane Kalako was wearing on the day he went missing. And the car key was similar to the car that he was driving. Suddenly, we realised we may have a clue as to where Shane may have been. And he'd gone out walking in this incredible area. He had a plan. He'd given information about where he intended to go.
This is, again, one of the important things is, I don't know if you've ever read or seen the film 172 Hours, the guy that Alan Ralston who chops his arm off, he could have prevented potentially being stuck there for so long if he'd told people where he was going. But in this case, this guy had told people where he was going. Again, was experienced. It just happened to I guess these are going to be navigational mistakes that have led people down the wrong gullies. And often what happens when people, they think they're going down a gully, you get to a point that you kind of don't want to go back up, and you might hit a steep section, and often people come to grief there, or they're going down, and these kind of gully features become accumulation areas for snow, so they're more likely to have anyway, it doesn't really matter. It's just more that he was an experienced climber.
But he never came back to his car and hadn't been seen since. And incredibly, within just a small number of days, we had an answer. And this key was the key to Shane Kalako's car.
I've got to applaud Paul for his puns there. The key was the key. Sorry, Paul. I love it. I really enjoy this.
The drone operator went up to that location and actually stood in the area where we had the recovery operation from Brookfield. And something quite incredible happened. Whilst he was looking for somewhere to put the drone down to fly and start that survey, he noticed something on the ground, almost exactly where we were recovering Mr. Brookfield. And it was
So this is really interesting. Years ago, I can remember we got called out with the Clanberis team. And in winter, if you follow the train tracks off Snowdon, what happens is there's like a convex slope like this, and the train track is right here. So if it ices over, you're basically, the slope gets steeper and steeper below you. So if you slip, you fall. And I can remember going there, and we'd had a report that somebody had fallen. We were assuming we were going to pick up their body. We get to the bottom, helicopter comes in. We put the casualty, in a body bag, get them in the helicopter, and the helicopter takes off. And During this, somebody else phones the rescue team and is like, is the helicopter going to come and rescue me? And it turned out that the guy phoning had been the person that had fallen from this group, but he'd managed to arrest himself before he'd fallen over like a 500-foot, 600-foot cliff and hadn't died, but somebody else earlier that day had. So honestly, you know, we also had a fatality like 2 days before that, and the two people that we'd recovered from the dead, we had the GPS coordinates. They were again meters apart. So often if people do fall down a similar terrain, there are often catch points that lead to that. So it's not that uncommon.
Piece of fabric under some brush and some twigs and the detritus that had washed down the gully, and he just made a very careful inspection of what he was looking at, and quite incredibly realised that he'd actually discovered the remains of Shane Kalako. What's really amazing about this story is that so many of the people on the team on that day had been involved in the searches 12 years before. The winchman who saw Mr. Brookfield from the helicopter only a few weeks before was also part of RAF 22 Squadron looking for Shane Kalako 12 years earlier. This brings so many people together around two really sad stories, but it shows the amazing willingness of volunteers and the emergency services to keep working and being so determined to find somebody who's been missing. This place is incredible. It's beautiful. It's really accessible.
I quite like the music on this, actually. It'd be very interesting to find out, because I know Paul. Paul had a background in music beforehand, so I wonder whether he also does a fair bit of filming. He might even be that person who was the drone operator for the police. I imagine he hasn't told it like that because it doesn't tell as well. But yeah, they're quite like the music. It's very like mellow, builds a little bit of thing. Yeah, generally, like I say, really enjoyed this video for its content and its message.
It's easy to drive here and to look up at the mountains straight out of the car. And these mountains, especially on a day like this, they look achievable, they look accessible, and it's an amazing adventure. But you might not always understand the scale of these hills. You might not always understand the impact of weather and how quickly it changes here. And if you don't have experience of walking and climbing and years of that experience, you're learning as you go. And so we have a very simple safety message: is be prepared in the mountains, understand what your limitations are.
Yeah, so this is like the really good stuff. He's going to start going through some things, you know, like be prepared, be aware of your limitations, and educate yourself. Now, part of that very first, very basic navigation thing that I did last week is about addressing that, in that often what people need to be able to do is to know the level they are at something. If you've never been up a mountain, if you've never been navigating, then potentially you're not going to have the knowledge, you know, you're not going to have the knowledge to know what you don't know. It's like you need to, if you ever come across Joe Harry Square, it's the unknown unknowns rather than the known unknowns. You know, if you know you're not very good at something, then you can do something about it. Or as somebody, an old instructor used to say, it's the risks you don't know you're taking that will end up killing you. So yeah, you know, being prepared, educate yourself. He comes up with loads more. Let's see what he's got to say.
Seek out some formal training and tell other people where you're going, and have a communication plan.
So these are really interesting. Like a communication plan would be, if I'm going out on the hill and I tell my friend I'm going out on the hill, you know, if I'm not back by this time, then something's happened to me. You know, you need to have quite a strong friend, in that, you know, most people will put off, but sometimes you need to not worry about putting these things off. You want to just have that person, you know, contact you immediately, or contact the services immediately. So, you know, there's not very good reception. So, you know, you might say, oh, if I haven't contacted you by 7 o'clock, and it might just be like you know, down safe, 2 words in a text to whoever's doing it. You know, this is another important thing, you know, knowing your descent routes. So many people know their way up, but they kind of don't really think about getting down. One of the reasons my book is kind of about scrambling and um, hill walking is that I felt that the walks down needed to be in there as well. You know, having an emergency contract, like I say, you can rely on. Yeah.
So very, very important, and something we'll often forget. You might have a plan to how to get to the top of a mountain, but how are you getting off that mountain? Have you researched what your descent route might be? Understand how to contact emergency services. So if something goes wrong, dial 999, ask for mountain rescue, and the police will put you through. Make sure you've got the right clothing for the weather. Make sure you've got enough food.
So this is interesting, you know, people being suitably dressed. I know it's summer. I can remember going to more than one or two rescues where, you know, people are in like flip-flops and a sundress halfway up Snowdon as the weather turns. It's like, yeah, that's not going to be a good look. You know, having enough food and water. And there's this argument that, you know, your emergency ration should be something you don't like. I quite often just try and get as much in my bag as possible and just eat everything. And then this bright clothing, what's interesting, I think he covers this in a bit, is that when you're looking for stuff outside, you know, when a rescue team's looking for stuff, if you're wearing green, black, grey, and even blue to a certain extent, if you just look at in the background here, you know, it's like green, brown, grey, blue, brown. You just get, you know, especially if it's dark, you just can't see people. And so yeah, it does help, and these are all really sensible things. Although I know that, like, you know, deep in his heart, I know Paul's like a Euro cragger when it comes to dressing. He likes to dress well.
And drink, particularly if it's hot. I would also say wear bright clothes. If you're wearing bright blue or bright orange and red and something that doesn't naturally blend, it's going to be so much easier to find you. Looking back at these two cases with Shane Colaco and Mr. Brookfield, we realised they were experienced walkers and they were doing what they loved, actually very well prepared as well. But it's always possible that something will go wrong. And in these cases, both of them ended up in ground, which really is very dangerous, and descending down a gully, which might have seemed inviting from the summit, but as it got steeper and more broken, it became harder and harder. I think this is a good
Yeah, so if that is the gully that, and I'm pretty sure it will be, he's very aware of the incident. Yeah, if you look back at that gully, I've done a scramble to the right of it, and it's absolutely hideous up there. Yeah, there's a classic one is when you're coming off Ben Nevis. If you follow, you kind of have to kind of take a couple of like bearing pacing. If you don't get this right on the last one, you can veer off, and it kind of, again, it starts, it's called Five Fingers Gully. It kind of looks quite nice, and it just goes into again, this killer convex where it just gets steeper and steeper below you, and you slip, and then you're done for.
Opportunity to express our gratitude to the volunteers who were involved in these cases and rescues every week throughout the year, and they all come together with the sole purpose of saving lives and protecting people in the mountains. For me, I volunteer because it's incredible. It's an amazing adventure, and you realise that it brings value to other people's lives, and I'm very grateful to be part of that. And in fact, helping where somebody has passed away and bringing them back off the mountains for their families and loved ones, for me, that's a massive privilege. We want you to come.
So this is a really interesting point. He's talking about, you know, rescue teams. They're all volunteers. Obviously, Paul also works for the police. The police kind of manage mountain rescue because it's part of the resilience that they have to kind of maintain. And, you know, these people are doing this for free. You know, like, it is not, you know, years ago when I was on the team, I definitely don't have the head for it. I you know, collecting people that have passed away on the hill is extremely somber, and often, you know, when you've had trauma involved in a fall, is quite a yeah, it definitely gave me kind of PTSD for a little while. So yeah, these guys are absolute legends. Yeah, you just, they're built different, although yeah, they're just built different.
Come and enjoy these beautiful mountains in Eryri in Snowdonia. It is amazing, but come and be safe and enjoy it.
Yeah, hopefully you agree that was a really, really good little video, and hopefully that is one of the reasons that I've decided to go down this route, is do a little bit of the live streaming to see whether or not we can at least show people the dark arts of what they aren't able to, you know, the skills they can't actually do, you know, like how many people, you know, okay, you can navigate, but can you really navigate when the chips are down? Are you going to be the one eating the chips? So after this video, I did, because it popped up and then I clicked on it and I ended up watching it on YouTube to try and get a better viewer thing. Then this popped up. This is like Adam Ondra going to Flash Lexicon E11 in the Lake District with Neil Gresham. I don't know if we'll watch all of it, but this is, again, I love this.
Welcome to the UK, country where lots of climbers embrace this weird style of climbing called tread climbing, using only the natural protection, which is sometimes reasonable, sometimes very sketchy, sometimes close to each other, sometimes very far.
Is this what?
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff in this. I don't want to show it all. I think you should watch this yourselves. It's, again, some really good stuff from Neil about, you know, he's inviting Adam over here. He's showing him the gear. He's got to show him where it's placed. And, like, you know, it's the hardest thing Neil's ever done. Is, you know, he's getting this guy to try and do it, you know, ground up first go. It's massive kind of achievement in climbing. And so yeah, it's definitely worth
Crimp up on the right. Into a good cycle right hand.
So the idea, for those that aren't really aware of the difference between like flashing and how other people have climbed this route, everybody else that has climbed this route has top roped it and worked the route and then, you know, and then gone for it. So this is like, yeah, that, you know, like the headline says, the hardest trad flash ever. Let's just go along. It kind of all builds up to the crux of this route is like right at the top.
Work, Adam. You're on the great.
This is great. You can see there's like, he's got like 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of gear and a fucking, pardon my French, and a dream to reach the top. Yeah, so basically this is where you've seen like other people take the whip earlier on in this, and he's just gonna go for it now. It's quite annoying because he's so good, Adam Andre. He almost makes this look pedestrian. Yeah. Man, those crimps are utterly ratty. Oh. You know, he's a tall lad, so you know somebody my height, not that I'd ever doing this, would be like well spanned out. Oh, they just look painful. It's like two finger up, two finger little pocket. A little bit of a... Yeah, so that's really interesting. If you saw him there, he was like properly having to look for his feet because he hasn't worked this before. It's like, yeah, most people would be like totally screwed. Setting up to move. Oh, he didn't quite grab that jug, but I imagine like anything that's flat is not going to lose. So yeah, that was like the second video that I quite liked, which then led into this, and this I don't think I'm going to have the time, but basically let's just play it. And
ever since I first started rock climbing, hanging out up on a ledge on a cliff, I just thought that was the coolest thing. It's a pretty incredible experience. Yeah,
so basically it's about two climbers, Amity Worm and Brent Barahan. I think I'm pronouncing those names really badly. But they go to do a thing called the Pineapple Express variation of El Nino. Now, El Nino was first put up in like 98. It was the first year I went to Yosemite, and I remember when Alex and Thomas Huber put it up, they were like, this is the hardest multi-pitch route. It will take 10 years or more to be repeated. It's only possible because we had power to spare. And I literally, the quote, "we had power to spare" in like his German, it did sound like the Terminator. So hopefully I won't be cancelled for that. But yeah, it was an amazing effort by Thomas and Alex Huber. But two young lads, Patch Hammond and Leo Holding, who I happened to had been travelling with I just come back from, so I went there and then I met them in India and Thailand. So yeah, we did it that way around. But they had just repeated El Nino within a couple of weeks, and they did it ground up on site. I think, or they worked a couple of pictures and then did it ground up on site. But their story is hilarious because they don't have any idea how to big wall. But yeah, this is a story. Now, if you've seen Free Solo, again, one of the best climbing films ever made. But at the same time, Dawn Wall came out, and to me, Dawn Wall was a better film to watch. Don't get me wrong, Free Solo is absolutely incredible. The footage, the actual achievement is amazing, but the story between the two climbers and the challenge of climbing the dawn wall made for a much more entertaining watch. And I kind of rank this as like a little, it's like the dawn wall for El Nino. I mean, these guys are still amazing. I think it's still like 8B, but yeah.
Brent and I are trying to free climb El Nino via the Pineapple Express variation. El Nino is a 25 pitch route on the right side of El Cap in Yosemite National Park. We chose to go ground up on this. Going ground up means you're starting from the ground with all of your supplies and going to the top, versus rappelling in or rehearsing pitches where you would rappel.
So again, this is more about their style of ascent. So, you know, lots of people have climbed El Nino. Lots of people have done it pretty well. I think Leo and Patch, after the first few pitches, when they just went ground up, and yeah. So it's not like don't get me wrong. This is an amazing achievement for the pair of them. And yeah, I just really liked it because it doesn't really talk about, oh, this is the first female, it's just a ground up ascent, and it presents itself as that. And actually Ebbety and Brent are both like utterly amazing climbers and really inspiring to sort of watch and hear their story, really. So yeah, that's another one to watch.
Down the climb itself, kind of like practice everything. When you're going ground up, everything is unknown. It's all a bit more of an adventure as you are questing up from the ground without having any prior knowledge really of what these pitches will be like. Lots of loose things. If it was all a bit more solid, it'd be a really cool pitch.
Yeah, too bad.
Brent and I have both climbed a handful of routes on the left side of El Cap, and this one kind of seemed like a step up both in difficulty and intensity.
The right side of El Cap is definitely a lot more intimidating for free climbing because it's steeper, the rock is...
Yeah, I just can't sit here and watch all of this with you. It is definitely worth you seeking out. Arc'teryx presents Ground Up. And then the other one was, I think it was Mammut Present. So that's on Mammut. And then this is in, the other one's North Wales Police. And then again, it's another Arc'teryx Presents Andrea for the other video. So yeah, hopefully that has been of interest for one or two people. Yeah, as you can see, I bought myself a microphone. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll come up with some more stuff later. Thank you very much. Bye. Right, how do we go? How do we stop this streaming? How do we stop it? There.